Holy smokes. Hello, everybody. My partner in truth, justice of the American way, Robin the Boy Wonder, is here. No, it's Blake McKenzie, of course. We love Blake. Blake, I'm so glad to see you on this Tuesday. We've been talking backstage, Blake sharing some really good insights. So much information is happening out there. Let's start off with some good news. First of all, happy Truth and Reconciliation Day, Blake. Proudly white boy. You is Scottish. You got some other things going on in Irish or Welsh or so. I don't know. You're a little mixed bag of whiteness, a glorious bag of beautiful whiteness. Now, on the other hand, I'm 20%. I'm 20% on according to Ancestry and 23andMe and all these things. I'm apparently basically quarter Native American. Okay, so represent on Truth and Reconciliation. So here's my truth. They haven't found a single frickin' body. There's the big cry was, oh, there's a Kamloops residential school. Make no mistake, the residential school problem was problematic on a few levels. One is the Indian Act. It's problematic. Yeah. We want to eradicate the Indian without, get rid of that. Not in so much in terms of genocide, but in terms of we want to solve the problems. We want to solve the backwards thinking. The more, we want you to enjoy the great advances in North American technology and culture and, all the good that it has to offer. And there's a great deal of good in the culture.
Yeah, we're Roman conquering the culture rather than militarily conquering.
You doubting Thomas Porch Pineapple, we'll make sure your bacon's hashed. Tell you that.
Get juice.
So, but okay, since when do you care about evidence? Trump makes shit up all the time. You believe it without question. Wrong, Porch Pineapple. And we've got a little story that will illustrate that for you. You backwards knuckle dragging Neanderthal. Okay, so we're going to clear that up for you. But thanks for being here, Porch. We just love the presentation, the appearance, and the support of our incredible channels. That's a beauty. That's a beauty. But anyway, Truth and Reconciliation. So it's a day where Canada's recognizing, but it's not genocide. There is no genocide in the Canadian record. We don't have. We had more genocide or more problems with inter-native kind of battles that were going on, the Cree, with the Dene, with the Blackfeet. This is in Canada, and also the Apache, the Comanche. I'm part Kiowa, Indian, everyone. By the way, if you watch the movie Revenant, when Leo DiCaprio is he's knocked over the head by a couple of rogue French guys, voyageurs, and they knock him out, the trappers, and they bury him in the ground because a bear kind of gets him and flops him around. He's kind of raped by a bear. It's horrible. But anyway, so Leo's tossed about, the bear gets him. Then they dig him out and he walks. It's all true, based on a true story. I think the guy's name was Philip Glass. And he has to walk back to Fort Kiowa, a.k.a. Fort Brazeau. Now, Fort Brazeau was run by my 6 times great grandfather, Joseph Brazeau. And so in the scene where Leo's brought into the little fort, that's actually my 6th great uncle. So I am literally, probably the most descriptive way you can define me genetically is I'm a direct product of the fur trade. European males coming in and hopping and having some fun with some of our native gals over here. And so this is the kind of my creation. But it's kind of a cool thing when I watch that movie. I think, oh, there he is meeting my great uncle kind of thing. Very cool. So anyway, let's hear it, neo-fascist. I will kick your ass so high that your fucking asshole will be sitting on top of your head, and you're just going to walk around and people will laugh at you, Porch Pineapple. So that is going to be a problem for you. That will be horrific.
Well, I think it's good that the neo-Confederates are here to promote their cause of separation and democracy and not constitutional republic. But you know what, Porch? Let's make classical liberalism great again. because that's what we are. We are not far left lunatics or socialists or Hitler-esque type people that came from your side of the socialist bent.
So, Sue, I know you got a clip here, but the first one I want to do, I'm going to remove that. What I want to do is this for Porch Pineapple. I want to show when our side is wrong. Sometimes we get things wrong. We're not Jesus, okay? We follow Jesus, and Jesus is never wrong. He's perfect. Neither do I believe Donald Trump is a Christian, by the way, for all that. A lot of people think, oh, he's Christian, everything. No, and in fact, I think it became very clear during the Charlie Kirk memorial service when Trump said his God or Charlie's face. It was he was separating himself from it. It was something that, and by God, I mean, what a nation we would have. And I say that even as a Canadian living in Nanaimo, because Trump mentioning 51st state again, very excited, very happy to become our most cherished and possibly our greatest state, our 51st United States of America. Boy, we just watched The Patriot, Mel Gibson. What a great movie. There they are. You love America. We love America. Okay, so the clip in question is, what have I called it? We got a lot of good stories today. Okay, oh, that's a good one. Okay, okay, so, yeah. Okay, we made the mistake. It's our, T-shirt gate, I've called it. So what happened? We had this guy drive into a Mormon church with his truck. Two big American flags, very visible in the horrific shot, burned the church to a crisp. 4 people dead at last count that I had. Yeah, and it's just awful. So this story broke. Our people went into it. We couldn't believe that, quote, somebody MAGA. Now, is the guy MAGA? MAGA is Make America Great Again. Not everybody that votes for Trump or supports Trump is MAGA, by the way. MAGA is a separate thing. You got to recognize that. It's nuanced. Just like everybody that votes Democrat is not necessary. The Democrats are a very fragmented party. Not everybody's on board with Kamala, or not everybody's on board with Biden or whatever. They have their camps, right? Chuck Schumer versus Ocasio Ocasio-Cortez. So you've got that. But here's this. I thought this was really telling. This story came out. And so on the surface, it went like this. This is from a character called Whale Fall. The image without the Trump shirt has a long list of metadata. The image with the short list, the image with the Trump logo had its metadata stripped. Looks like someone wants to pin this on MAGA. Okay, so we all went, aha, like this is all fake. Scroll on down, it gets good. So there he's showing how the metadata originally appeared, et cetera, et cetera. Now keep going. I love this guy. Here's the integrity. I finally found the link associated with the original. He even provides a link for it. The metadata checks out. Update my opinion. This seems to be legit. The altered, without the one with the Trump removed, is the fake stuff. Fake, phony, false. And then you go down, scroll down. Of course, the first time any post of mine gets anywhere near viral is because I made a mistake. Not sure. The takeaway here, the algorithm rewards misinformation. And then go down some more because the comments are great. Kevin Cuddleback goes, glad you thought this all the way through, at least as far as 2019. Facebook strips the metadata from posted photos, whereas someone altering a photo could reintroduce that data. And then Val goes, I found the Facebook post afterwards, unfortunately. Tried to edit, but I didn't get to it in time. The shirt with the Trump stuff removed is the edited one. And then Fred goes, bro, the one without the Trump logo is clearly edited. And he gives the evidence for it. And that's absolutely true. So MAGA got it wrong. And this guy, now he had a hate on for the Mormons. Now, as Christians, remember, not everybody in MAGA, incredibly so. The president himself, I don't believe, is a, quote, born again Christian or has the revelation of Jesus Christ vitalized within his own spirit. I don't believe that. But for all that, he's an ally. He's doing more good than bad for our side. He's doing more good than bad. But what happens is that this guy clearly broke Christian doctrine by murdering people of the Mormon Latter-day Saints faith. Now, Christians do believe that Mormonism is a sect. Okay, we don't believe it's a cult. It's more accurately defined as a Christian sect, not so much a cult. Like Jehovah's Witnesses are more a cult, but this is a sect, the Mormon sect. It has doctrine that precludes it from becoming Christian by definition, and therefore we do oppose it doctrinally. Having said that, in no wise should anyone, for any idea, any ideology, any theological disagreement, seek out and seek to harm anyone in any way, shape, or form. You can reprove, rebuke, exhort with all doctrine and long suffering. That's part of the book. That's part of the obligation. But we do not hurt people. So this guy, clearly troubled, had a hate on for the Latter-day Saint Church for reasons of his own. I believe, and of course the story's still relatively new, it happened a couple of days ago. He had a previous girlfriend that was a Mormon, a Latter-day Saint, and she was apparently, according to him, he had to change, and the parents were really pressuring him, and there was a lot of pressure on this guy socially and psychologically. He's a former military veteran, for what I understand. And God help those poor people. So many of them have mental problems. But bottom line, Mega got it wrong. The shirt's real. He's a Trump supporter. There's no way he's not. He's got the American flags. He was a patriot, but he was clearly mentally disturbed, because you don't go killing people. Okay, that's your first clue. In fact, even under zeal, you can't go zeal, zealousness, zeal. Even in the Bible, as Jesus is being carted off to the cross, Peter reaches out with his sword and cuts off Malchus, the assistant to Caiaphas, the chief priest, cuts off his ear. Christ grabs the guy's ear off the ground, puts it back on the guy's head, miraculously heals it, says, "Put away your sword, Peter. That is not our way. We are not people of the sword. We are people of the word of the Bible." And the only way the sword it gets is the word, right? The word of God, a sharp two-edged sword out of which Christ will smite the nations. But that's the word of God. In the beginning was the word was with God, yada, yada, yada. And yada, yada, yada is not in the original, so don't go looking for that. All right. So Blake, you're starting the t-shirt, and your thoughts on when our side gets something wrong. And clearly we did here.
Well, people are wrong individually. That's what happens. I mean, I can be wrong. I'll admit that too. And I'm sure you can admit when you've been wrong. I mean, that's just human nature. You can't be perfect. The key is to be open-minded enough so that you can be corrected. That's the key. But yeah, you get people of all stripes that can go off the deep end, and that just happens. And it's unrelated to politics in a lot of ways, like you just described. Like we don't know the full story yet behind this guy, but it sounds like he was disenfranchised from the Mormon faith because of a relationship. People can go off the deep end real quick. And how many times do you hear about this craziness that happens with somebody walks in there's an affair, and boom, the whole family dies, right? Plus and then the killer ends up taking themselves as well.
I actually have a cousin of mine, a Vietnam War vet. He lost it. He went nuts and killed his sister. He killed his mom. He killed his sister-in-law, I believe, and killed two of his nephews. All on a lovely Sunday. This happened in Washington State, and so just horrible, right? It does happen, these acts of violence, but nonetheless, we don't excuse it. We recognize it. Yeah, the guy.
But it's separate. But it's separate, right? It's not motivated by politics. I think that's the difference. The guy who shot Charlie Kirk was being egged on and motivated by a political class to do that to people.
That was a political assassination. This was a personal. This was a personal.
It was terrorism. Essentially, it was terrorism.
Yeah,
it was an act of terror. Where this was an individual acting out out of insanity. I mean,
but
really.
still against a targeted group, in this case, the Church of Jesus Christ of
Yeah.
Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. John Bandy in the House, violence for the far left or for far right or anybody in between. How about we just say, don't kill people wherever you are, whatever your political leanings are, don't do it. And hello, Rachel and Blake. Hello, John Bandy, very intelligent guy, a Christian guy. He has his own bias, but highly intelligent. Boy, parched pineapple, you can do a lot for yourself by listening to John Bandy. We love him. Okay, we got so much going to. Now, here's a good story from our side, Blake. This I've titled J6 Operative. You know, the big lie from the left is that, the Republicans, the MAGA, we went berserk and we invaded the Capitol building, all this nonsense. And we've now learned that 275 approximately, maybe more, maybe less, FBI agents were involved and active at the Capitol building on that very day. It's looking more and more like a setup. We're going to find out. It's all being investigated, folks. Thank God for Kash Patel and the Trump administration FBI. They're looking into it. We'll get to the bottom of it. But here's another clear-cut example. I want to read the comment before we play the clip. John Strand, a former J6er himself, by the way, went to prison for his activities on January 6th, which were precious and few. Wow, congressional source now confirming nearly 300 FBI operatives embedded in the crowd on J6. Amazing. Here's one of them breaking into the Capitol and blaming it on an innocent bystander. J6 was a Fedsurrection setup, just like I've said for 4 years now. They've ruined our lives for a scam. Make it big and roll the clip. Take that time. Yeah. There you go.
Do not go in there.
A radio journalist from Michigan was shooting video that day at the Capitol. What he captured were two, most charitably called, suspicious actors, but they are dressed in such a way that led him to believe that they were government agents. And one of them, after the windows had been broken by a protester, it was encouraging people to pull the rest of the glass out and go inside. Bobby Powell, who was the journalist that had shot it, and he has his camera rolling, he told him that would be illegal. And that wouldn't be a good idea. He warned people off not to go into that window. And then he turned his camera around and he caught this agent or suspicious actor pulling a large pane of glass out, this tempered glass. It kind of folds into itself, crunch onto the ground. When he realized he was being filmed, he quickly dropped it. It seems apparent on the video that he did not want to be seen doing what he just did. So he pulled in a protester and started blaming him. He said, "What are you doing breaking that window?" The poor fellow that was being accused didn't know what was going on. And then he gave him a couple of really good shoves and cocked his arm like he was going to punch him. We don't know. His facial image is not on any of the Sedition Hunters sites or the FBI's most wanted site, but he clearly was committing criminal damage to property, and he has not been charged. So it raises a question of why.
Also, the individual trying to, again, opening the window up is even encouraging people to enter, I believe, as well?
Yes.
What's he saying?
Well, he said, "Why don't y'all open the rest of it up?"
Okay, so, I mean, that goes on for a bit. We got a short show, but I think we've seen the most telling, the most condemning evidence we've provided. Clearly, the guy's masked up for one thing. What the fuck? MAGA we don't mask up, right? That's Antifa that wears the mask. What are they called? That right-wing nonsense group in the khaki and blue, the
fake guys.
It's like the
National
Patriot
Front or something.
I think they're the Patriot Front or something. They're a bunch of frickin'.
The fact that they use the word front, it means you're trying to discredit the whole.
And they're all masked up. Their identities are disguised. Extremely problematic, right? Trump is addressing the nation as he does almost daily. Yeah, fantastic. We love our president so deeply. I love him so much. But here, I mean, it couldn't be more clear. All this stuff is suppressed. Like the individual was saying there, I think he's a congressman. He was saying there's no footage of this guy. This guy doesn't appear on FBI lists, but it's all under investigation now. Ray Epps needs to be dispositioned. He got a slap on the wrist. I think it was Erdogan or the other guy that looks like the nightmare from Brazil, the bald guy. He let him off with Ray Epps got a slap on the wrist while other J6 people were in jail. And he only got charged because of incredible pressure from MAGA. We put pressure on this guy to see justice. We want this Ray Epps. And we still don't know the truth of his full identity. We don't know the identity of the J6 pipe bomber, all that information, but it's all under investigation. That's the beauty about it. I trust Kash Patel. I trust Dan Bongino. I forget the name of the new guy they brought in, the new deputy, also to share duties with Dan. He's really good too. From what I understand, he's a patriot and he's a legal eagle. He's got a mind for law. And so he's going to be a great asset to us. But clearly, the guy with the mask is and the fact that he's pushing and being violent to the patriot with the flag that's saying, hey, don't go in there. The patriot's saying, don't go in there. Don't do that.
To John's question there, or what he's stating, I believe 100% that is the case. I mean, I don't think Trump would just make an announcement of a group of people who are just protesting. This is a highly organized street thuggery. Yeah. We've seen this before, historically, back in the 1930s when the brown shirts were organizing on the streets, working for a political front, beating people up. The fascists at that time, which were basically socialists. They were just national socialists, but they were socialists beating people up. And the unions used to do that too. They would have their groups that were highly organized, and they would go and brutalize people in the streets. They're a street thug group. And my opinion is that Antifa is essentially the extension of the new creation of the KKK. The KKK was created by the Democrats. It was a terror group on the street. They were to create fear, for obvious reasons. The other was that the fact that once it got discredited, they could no longer use the Klan as their shock troops on the ground.
Yeah, the world changed too, right?
Yeah, so the world changes, and they do the same thing. They just utilize terminology and then gaslight the rest of the world when they're the actual people that have that philosophy. These are the fascists.
Yeah.
Antifa, I was just going to say, has become like the new KKK. They are the guys in wearing masks, hiding themselves and terrorizing people on the streets and taking control of the streets like a street gang, except they're highly organized, they're highly funded, and they've had a reign for quite some time. And now they're finally getting pushback. And now it's supposed to be, well, they're the mainly peaceful protesters crap. It's not. They're not peaceful protesters. They're never shown to be peaceful protesters. Yeah. And all they do is create terror and fear, brutalizing people in the streets. And when one group decided to stand up voluntarily against them, they were labeled the racist group, and yet there were people of all colors in it, and that was the Proud Boys.
Yeah, Proud Boys. It was problematic because anytime you go seek violence with violence or try and strong arm something, I mean, it's fun for the views. The classic with the guy he's got the big arm cast or whatever.
Yeah.
And he just frickin' lays out this little frickin' Antifa type, the guy's not cold by this guy. So
but there's a leadership structure there, and I think those little guys are peons around the edges. They're just the followers,
soldiers,
right? Yeah, they're just recruits from college or whatever. But there is an actual group of people that are hired and paid to do this kind of stuff, and that's where I think where Doge came in and started massacring these funding back channels to how they get money. Yes. Soros is a bad guy, but Soros was utilizing through these fake charities and through NGOs collecting money, and it would be matched with federal funds.
USAID was a big one. Yeah.
USAID, they had all these channels where funds could go and disappear. Why were these guys showing up with trucks full of gear and equipment and rocks and bricks? And, they'd be bussed in on buses for these
and
protests.
often you'd find that during one of these events that there would be conveniently a pallet of bricks or a pallet of rocks about, in a cage, and the rock is there. And it's just sitting there on pallets waiting for, how convenient. Look what I got here. That'll work. Improv, cause some trouble. So,
and this is done globally. When we talk about the deep state is a global animal. It's not just in the U.S. This is something the Western civilization has been fighting now for a few years. And, we can connect it all to, Klaus Schwab. We're going to go into an angrier world. That was his quote.
Yeah. Can you read
they're
it?
generating the anger. That's what
you gotta listen. We got to entertain the people. Can you do it like a Klaus Schwab might say it?
Oh. I don't know. We are
a
more angrier world.
You've had big face.
We just need Schultz next to him going, I know nothing. I see nothing. That's all the bureaucrats.
John, our good friend John goes, watches some of the street journalists shows that they seem to not want cameras on them and get pushy when that happens. I surmise the cameras will record their violence. Therefore, those cameras are not allowed. Yeah, they don't want them around. But, so this J6 footage, this is all coming out. There's a new sheriff in town. His name's Donald John Trump. So we're seeing some good things happen. I'm excited about it. So much to get into, so much to cover today. A lot of stories coming in. Okay, so we're talking here in Canada's Truth and Reconciliation. It's all about the kind of the harms that Native people in Canada experienced. Some of us institutionalized racism. Yeah. We concede the point. Canada did have that, but the world changed. The world changed dramatically. And I just don't see the same thing. Now, being Indian myself, part Native, people, hey, chief, I get called that. Or, I got kicked out of a bar when I was 19 on my birthday here in Canada, British Columbia. You had to be 19 to get a drink. And the bartender, I showed him ID, he wouldn't let me drink at my dad's bar. He said, go down to my bar, the old man, right? Go down, have a beer, go to my bar. It was called the Halfway House on Esquimalt Road in Victoria. Well-known, established, old establishment. Anyway, I went there. The guy, I showed him ID, he said, no, you ain't getting in here. And then my dad phoned out, hey, do you have a beer? I go, no, he wouldn't let me in. What do you mean he wouldn't let you? He said my ID is no good, that I'm not that. So my dad phones him up. Hey, Ken, Bob, Jim, whatever the guy's name. Hey, my kid was just in there. He says you wouldn't serve him. What's going on? And he goes, what, that Indian kid? Because my dad was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy. I was adopted, right? So I didn't look nothing like my dad. He could not equate the Indian with my dad. He just didn't want a drunk Indian in his establishment. So he felt, free and easy. Those days are long gone. It just doesn't happen anymore. But once upon a time in the 1970s, sure, it was there. It was real. But it wasn't genocide. It wasn't genocide. Anyway, Maxime Bernier on Truth and Reconciliation. Sue, I thank you as always for the comments. On this National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Well, Sue, do you want to read it? Do you have any energy for it? Okay, no, she doesn't. I'm going to do it. On this National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, let's remember that no bodies were found, that the residential schools, quote, genocide is a hoax, and that reconciliation requires an end to the bullshit. The victim mentality, it's got to go. The fake white guilt, that's got to go. And the grifting, all based on that system, has to go. And then just scroll up and we'll just show a little picture. There's Trudeau, a little AI generated. Well, this is AI generated. The real one is almost as bad. You don't even have
where he's kneeling.
Yeah, where he's kneeling with the little teddy bear for the kids.
Yeah.
Okay, and 4D Man, always a great pleasure to have 4D in. Marshall McLuhan's dead, the great Canadian sociologist. I think he was a sociologist, could be wrong about that, but Marshall McLuhan, political, scientist, is dead. It took 60 years for the word global to lose its I'd like to teach the world to sing overtones to become totally fascist. What a strange trip it's been, to quote the dead. You're absolutely right about that, 4D. Remember that commercial? I love that commercial. I'd like to teach that. We had black people and Chinese and the hippies everywhere holding
And
their
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Colas. It was a great ad. It was viral. We all remember, people of a certain vintage remember watching that commercial. Of course, you're right, 4D. It has turned into a horrible dystopic nightmare that we're living in now. But this reconciliation thing is just nuts. Fortunately, if we're talking truth and reconciliation, I know that Tim Hortons last year for Truth and Reconciliation Day, we're selling a special donut called Trauma Donuts. Okay. So they were orange donuts. The color it's like Every Child Matters. You see these orange shirts with the message. It's all about the genocide of the Indians, which didn't occur.
Yeah.
It's all bullshit. But because I'm here. So if it's genocide, they did a piss poor job of it. I'm here. Yeah.
Well, the biggest, there was no genocide. There was definitely conflict and war, mainly south of the Canadian border.
Yes.
They had quite a few wars down there, but they were militarily fought on both sides. There was actual war, but there was also massacres.
Yes.
And that happened as well, which was a form of genocide where you go to wipe out everybody. Yeah. And we even have history where it was faked, in the sense of what happened when a group of Mormons, I'm not going to say all Mormons aren't blamed for this, but it is a shame for their church of what happened down when they dressed as and partnered with some, I believe it was some Paiutes, but they massacred settlers that were crossing at that time.
Yeah.
The Mountain Meadow Massacre, look it up. We don't need to go into that, but stuff happened. And in Canada, there was fights, skirmishes broke out. We could talk about the Louis Riel Rebellion.
Yeah,
there's a lot.
My great-great-grandfather fought in that, and Seuss was fighting on the other side for the government. It was kind of wild.
Well, and I think that what the difference is now, it's truth and reconciliation. Let's call it for what it is. It's not truth, and there is no reconciliation. The intent is no reconciliation. The intent is to destroy Western civilization. It is a Marxist organization. You look at the colors they're using. The orange was never a Native American, for Americans in the U.S., we call them First Nations here, or Indigenous peoples of Canada in Canada, and orange was not the color. Orange is a color that the NDP, which is a far left socialist ragtag group of political nutcases that control a big part of our province, especially here in our home province of British Columbia, orange is their color. And orange, I'll also note, was used as a part of the color revolution, they called it, in the Ukraine, right? Which they overturned an election, and orange was the color. Yeah. And that's why we have problems today. And of course, George Soros's hands were all over that one. But that is the color of a political party. And people talk about what happened in the residential schools. I 100% agree. I think the state does not have the responsibility to manipulate the minds of our children. That is a family's responsibility to raise a child, not the village. The family decides to help out their children, because look how, I just want to finish this thought.
Okay, sorry.
Understand that what did we see, what we talked about, where they changed the language. They want to make it sound incendiary that we've genocided all these people. No, they actually, when you talk to them and you actually dig deeper, they say, well, actually it was cultural genocide. Well, hold on. Now you're demeaning the word genocide to the people who have been massacred around the world for who they are and dug in deep pits. And, the Armenian genocide, the Holocaust, there's all kinds of genocides around the world. Rwanda, we can go, and there's ones going on today in Nigeria, apparently 500,000 Christians. Nobody wants to talk about the Christians being murdered, to 500,000 murdered in Nigeria right now. And that is something everybody should be talking about. But let's hit it for what it really is. It's state-run warehousing and culturally destroying the people they're putting in those schools to take the, as they called it back then, take the Indian out of them. It's Rome, essentially. Rome's taking over. We're doing what we're doing. You're going to become part of this world on what we want you to believe. See, I have no problems with cultures wanting to teach their children and say, this is my culture, and I agree with it, as long as it's peaceful. You can coexist with everybody as long as you can coexist. But if you can't, well, that's a problem. But the problem is we're still doing it today. And we call it the public school system. And this is where the Marxists have been controlling our children now. And we're just doing it again. So when you ask these people running around the NDP who are part of that mass manipulation of our children, converting them with all kinds of ideological points of view that don't line up with our Western civilized values, what's changed? There is no truth and reconciliation. The truth is just a lie. And that's the problem. When we talk about the bodies that have not been dug up, that they use as a catalyst to overturn, what it's doing is overturn Western civilization, period. We hate Western civilization. Let's go back to living tribally. But it's really just a grift to sack the taxpayers billions of dollars, and even worse, strip property rights in Canada. And that's the other thing to see what's going on here. This has nothing to do with fixing the wrongs of the past. Because if you were going to do truth, you would do all the research, you would investigate, all sides would work together to find the truth, talk about it. Reconciliation means we'd shake hands at the end, have a big hug, and move forward. But that's not the intent. The intent is to destroy. They're calling people who are not Indigenous. And again, I don't believe it's Indigenous people pushing this. This is the fanatical Marxist groups that are control our government, who are creating division for a reason and can manipulate it for power and control. And that's essentially where it comes to. So I think there's a problem. We need to look at our school system today, which does have a problem doing exactly what they've claimed the residential schools is, proselytizing children, forcing them away from their families. And we do that to this day. We force them. We're telling them, sorry, family, you don't have a right to know when we're talking to your children, and they can go and be proselytized by a far left lunatic, counselor, and telling your child who's 9 years old that they may have a confusion on their gender. And this is the problem. Like, we're seeing this today, or their political views are being sent out by teachers to protest with them on matters that concern the teachers' unions. So again, this is a problem that continues. So there is no intent. That's my argument. Why call it truth and reconciliation when, one, you're not trying to tell the truth, and two, you're not trying to reconcile anything. You're trying to demean and destroy and divide.
Yeah, very true. I mean, and it's clearly manifest. You can see it. If you have an eye, you can see it. One of the things I do recall is that, like, these kids that went to residential schools, is they weren't allowed to speak their Cree dialect. That's problematic. So there were mistakes made, and these things were intentional, and they were fueled by the idea that you'll be bettering yourselves if you can speak English and participate in the great experiment, the now failed experiment called Canada, because you'll be part of something larger than yourselves with full access to the cultural values that the nation holds as its own, the ability to read and write. And I tell you, man, because of the residential system and because of the way things went out, I've still got cousins that are, in our way of thinking, would be very backwards people. They're people of the land. They're trappers. They know how to trap. They know how to hunt. They know how to fish. They know how to gather berries and the like. But as in terms of our kind of living and understanding of the world and the universe and stuff, miles apart. They're still with the idea of Turtle Island. We're all living on the back of a big turtle, and this kind of idea. Yeah. So so there were some mistakes were made. I think intentionally made. Grievances were there, but at the end of the day, it's not genocide, and that's a big thing. And everything Blake says is absolutely accurate. It's just there as a talking point to further divide people. And
at the root cause, again, we go to socialism. It was socialism. There was Christian socialism at that time. It was rising. Marx and Engels were already writing at that time. Their books were already out. The eugenicist movement, all these people out of the socialist side, which inspired Nazi Germany, by the way. These socialists inspired them about genetics, about differences in genetics. And these guys were crazy, and they always end in the same result: complete disaster. Show me where socialism has worked. It doesn't. You need the free voluntarily, everybody to voluntarily want to be part of something when they include themselves, not by force or being compelled, but have to do it voluntarily. Just like we point out in Truth and Reconciliation Day, we can talk about the Incomeep, now known as the Soyuz Band, actually went to the Indian Affairs and said, at that time, was where the residential schools were coming out, and you can look this up. They said, we don't want to lose our culture. Before you start forcing our children to go to these residential schools, we believe it's important that our children can be part of the new world and can learn about it, but we also want them to retain their culture. So they were the first in British Columbia to say, we'll fund it. We'll hire the teacher. We'll build our own school. And they did. And they're one of the most successful First Nations tribes in Canada. You can look them up. Incredibly industrialist, did incredibly well financially. Most of the people, they have strict rules on living on band land as well. You can't just be sitting around drinking or selling drugs or doing any crap. They're very strict, but they teach their kids values at a very early age. And those values were their culture, but they also taught them all the things of the world so they would be knowledgeable. That was the way to do it, and it worked. But that's the problem when you have big government comes in and says, we know what's best, we're here to save you, right? And that was the problem, right? And yet there was a lot of families that didn't lose their kids by force to the residential school system. A lot of them delivered them because they wanted it. So that's the truth. There was families thought it would be good for their kids to go to these schools.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that this is pointed out if we're going to talk about the truth, that, yeah, my point is that socialism has been a scourge for families and our countries for a long time. And I don't think the U.S. Constitution was built on the idea of socialism.
Couldn't agree more, Blake. Absolutely right. Good point by John and 4D talking about word meanings changing over the years. But, no Truth and Reconciliation Day would be complete without a reference to our beloved donut factory. I just showed a little clip of the donuts out there. The what are they called? Trauma donuts. Have a trauma donut. God, I feel good eating my trauma. God, it's a feel-good day of the year. But we got this as well. We got different type of engine problems. This time it's in Timmy Hortons based. This Ontario police officer was having none of the bullshit of this South Asian type Indian. Tim Hortons employee and his boss, Mohammed. She has every right to be here. Shout out to the cop. What the hell's going on at Timmy?
Quick, hold on before you press
play. Hold on before you play. Blake's got a comment.
Yeah, it's got a background on this because it doesn't seem to say. Just so everybody's listening, understand what happened. The manager was encouraging a 17-year-old girl, Canadian, to marry somebody for $20,000 from India so you could get somebody from India to come in under a fake marriage and pay them $20,000. She was 17 and underage. So take it away.
That's illegal, isn't it, Blake?
Yes, that is illegal.
Okay, smokes. Let's find out what's happening at Timbits. Oh, I gotta have my Timbits.
The owner called, but he's not here. So he's claiming that gentleman who was trespassed came into the store.
Not the gentleman, the lady.
What lady?
The one who's holding the...
Yeah, and what's wrong with that?
So he said that no one, she's trespassing in the private property.
How is she trespassing?
He was standing in the lobby.
She is an independent journalist. Mm-hmm. She was never trespassed from this property, and she has her 100% rights to be here. Just because your boss doesn't like the fact that an independent journalist is in here video recording, that's not up to him. She has the right to do that.
I can call him.
I'm not going to, no. I'm not going to talk to him. You tell him that she has all the right to be here. I'm not going to entertain that. You tell that to Mohammed. I'm sorry if I'm being crass with you, but you relay that to Mohammed that I'm not even entertaining that portion of it, of this lady being here.
If any media is
It doesn't matter. They have all the rights in the world to do it.
Obviously, our thoughts are with Mohammed at this difficult time. So anyway, I guess the investigative reporter was on the property following the story that Blake was talking about. The 17-year-old girl was offered 20 grand to marry one of these customers. Or
Former manager. Yeah, she was a 17-year-old employee.
Oh, was she working there?
Oh my!
She was working there. Yeah.
How would you like to be? You could have 20 grand. You're like, goodbye, you guy. Okay, fantastic. Anyway, so the cop wasn't having any of it. What a rare thing to see.
Half the immigrants have fallen.
Oh, the immigrants are
You
gone.
can go there and get a husband from
Holy
East
smokes.
Asia.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're trying to help people stay who are outside of their visa stay and get them married local so they don't have to go back home.
And in fairness, it's not just the East Asian or South Asian, they call it South Asian community, East Indians. It's not just them. Other people do. I remember my friend Joe, he's passed on now, God bless Joe, but he married a girl that way. And the feds were all over him. He was from Croatia. God bless, God rest Joe. He was a good guy. But, you know, he did have an arranged marriage.
Well, mail order brides, right? How many we've seen whole catalogs of that sold for a long time from the Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah, Sue's got a story here.
Remember my
another Joe.
My boss.
Yeah, I can't mention his last name.
Too. He was trying to buy a bride.
He was trying to buy a Chinese bride. He was a Chinese Canadian.
Well, she was trying to get him so she could, you know,
come over here. It was going to be a big money deal.
She was going to pay him $20,000.
Hooky smokes.
Geez, 20 grand doesn't have much value these days. It's kind of devaluing yourself.
Jason Pace, here's some more good news from our side.
Well, hold on. Ilan Omar did a whole different thing with that. She just married her brother.
She married the brother. That's yeah. She's a step ahead, Blake. Okay, let's do the smoke bomber. We caught him, Blake. This is a story Blake was following, and I saw it as well. So this is kind of good.
Kind of following the story of what we just talked about, Jan 6. This is kind of this weird stuff. So this should kind of follow that.
Okay, Blake, I'm going to let you read this one and just you quarterback this for us and tell us what's going on.
So Alexandra Lavoie, she is from Rebel News.
Lavoie.
Lavoie. She is Alexa. She goes by Alexa. Anyway, she found the guy who smoke bombed Sean Hecht. Am I pronouncing his last name correctly?
Yeah, the Christian singer. Yeah,
Christian singer. He was playing a church in Quebec, and he became quite publicly known because these governments kept banning him from being able to have a public location to do a Christian worship band. And they kept shutting him down because they were saying he was far right, he was MAGA. And that was their rationale about it. Meanwhile, the Hamas holes have been blocking our streets almost daily with public prayers and protests about Palestine. So we saw that going on. Anyways, he smoke bombed the service and they caught him. Right, they found out who he is. There's actually a reward for him.
Is this the one Blake got or mine?
We found him, the alleged smoke bomber, and his shocking links to Antifa and inside Canada's military. So apparently, he's a military member of the Canadian National Defense here. So go ahead and press play.
Yeah, let's play the clip. It looks kind of interesting.
I mean, it's 18 minutes long.
Ça va être une enquête citoyenne, là, quelque chose de même, mais...
Nice, Frank. Here's the incident.
Ah ouais, décolle! Décolle! Décolle!
Hey, c'est quoi ton problème? We found the thug who allegedly smoke bombed a Christian worship service, and he appears to be linked to an Antifa cell operating within Canada's Department of National Defense.
There you go. That's all you need to know.
At Rebel News, we did what the Montreal police should have done. We launched a reward campaign to identify and track down the criminal who thought he could get away with attacking a church using incendiary devices. Not only did we find him, but in the process, we may have uncovered a serious national security breach. The alleged smoke bomber is Gabriel Lepage, an employee at the Long Point military base, working under the Department of National Defense. Is that why he knew how to handle incendiary devices? What kind of training is being given within the military that could enable this sort of attack? Our investigation also uncovered what appears to be strong ties between Lepage and Antifa radicals, something even more concerning. And you will see the evidence in this report. Antifa is not just a fringe ideology. It's a dangerous network of extremists willing to engage in violence. That's why President Donald Trump declared Antifa a terrorist organization. But what is the Liberal government doing here in Canada?
Nothing.
Shockingly, they appear to be employing these extremists within federal institutions tasked with our national security.
Okay,
Yeah.
so a really interesting story. Great that they've taken care of business and that they've identified this guy. Now, the next question, will we see justice? Will charges be laid against this guy? They caught him. The really interesting thing about this, Blake, is America has the same problem. We still have Antifa members that are wearing the United States military uniform, whether it's Air Force, Navy, Army, Marine, whatever. They're embedded. They're there. It's out. The infiltration has been ongoing for a very long time, but it's still a process of weeding it out and finding it. On that, we were talking backstage before the show started, just to kind of off the cuff here. I'd like to segue from this because we don't know. This is just breaking on this guy. We'll see if justice comes. We'll keep track. You were talking about how Trump is being frustrated by agents within his administration, within the Republican Party, the GOP, that are hindering. They're certainly not MAGA. They're anything but. They're rhinos. Now, Trump won a recent Supreme Court ruling where he can fire anybody basically anywhere at his pleasure. The power of the presidency is being restored under Trump. And so he can clean house where he can. But again, there's a disconnect between how much he knows where he can go and what is happening. Speak to that. You spoke quite well about it before the show.
Well, I think the problem that Trump is facing, like he did in his first administration, at least he got the knowledge of how it works in the first administration and what he was experiencing, the direct attack on his presidency, a coup d'etat, I would call it.
Yeah.
And now he's positioned to. He still has to run government. That's his job. He is the executive branch of the United States. He has to make sure what the function of government continues to run, but he can't micromanage every corner of it. So you have to hire people, trusted people, to carry out his policies as the people of the United States voted for to do that. But the problem where they're getting into bottlenecks is that the deep state is still there. And the deep state, we're not talking about within the opposition of clearly they're Democrats. They're out there protesting. They're government workers, frustrating that side. But in this case, these are people from within, quote unquote, supporters that aren't really supporters. They're probably more like moles. But they're slowing down the process of getting the people they need into these positions. And then when they find out they're not really who they say they are, they got to quietly move them out and get somebody else in. But you have to have a battalion of people you trust that are doing that work, that managing the bureaucracy side of massive government. Like the U.S. government. It's huge. So he can't do it himself. So he has to have people to trust. So people go, Kash Patel isn't doing enough. Dan Bongino isn't doing enough. Pete Hegseth isn't doing enough. Pam Bondi isn't doing enough. Well, they're only as good as the people underneath them. And that's the problem. Like they're fighting to go into this.
They're cleaning their respective areas out as well.
As much as they can at a speed that I think MAGA would love to see it. To do it yesterday, right? Everybody agrees the swamp needs to be drained. But when you pull the plug, it takes time for that water to drain, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's going to take a long time. These guys have entrenched themselves for
Over decades.
You could go all the way back to these policies as back as FDR, right? FDR was probably the first where they saw massive government growth, massive government power. We saw in 1933, the gold was stripped away and robbed from the people of America. Their gold bullion was stolen from them. So I think you start back then, and it's been this ongoing deep state is more of a philosophy, a culture, a real bad culture for America that America has been fighting. And that's why we saw the assassinations of JFK. We saw RFK, and we saw Martin Luther King, and all the people that would cause upheaval against the establishment side that have ingrained themselves for decades. But that's what Trump's facing. You can't change everything overnight. It takes time. You've got hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people, that work off this system. And I think that's the problem, is that the leadership that you've got upper management, middle management, lower management. You've got right down to the secretaries and the pencil pushers down at the bottom. And you don't know. The Democrats have laid traps and cells all the way down there because it's been their team. When Trump got elected in 2016, who showed up to protest? Basically, the government workforce in Washington, D.C. just openly walked out and said, look,
the pussy hats and all that.
We know who
by the pussy. Horrible. Okay,
90% of the workforce is work for the Democrats, right? So how do you change that cancer?
Settle down. You're all worked up today. I need you all calm. I've got a question for you. Okay, here you go. Okay, so 100,000 U.S. Government employees decided to hand in their resignations today. What do you think about that?
That would be awesome.
I think it's very good news. It's up to 150,000. So who's buying out? Who do you think's buying out? Good actors or bad actors?
I would think it's the people that are who have already got their pension. It's an act. It's a production, and are getting their packages. I would like to see the ages of the group, because you're going to have attrition anyways. There's a lot of boomers that are retiring anyway. So it's a big act, I would think. Staged by Democrats, right? Oh, I've been working for the bureaucracy for 30 years. I've made my few million in the bank, and I can retire in my big pension. And so let's all go out with one big bang and retire together, but make it look like we're all resigning.
Now, no show that we do would be complete without a little look at the crises of climate change. It's just horrible. Sometimes you wake up and by gum, in Canada, it can be so chilly. So I've got one there with the climate change. Sue's been kind enough to grab the clip. Let's take a look. Who's talking? It's our friend Keir Starmer. Okay, James Wood, Hollywood legend. This dingbat is a laughably stupid fool. Wall Street Mav writes, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says climate change for why millions of third world military-age Muslim men are coming to the UK. Let's play the clip. See how he explains it.
I think we need to look at every aspect of illegal migration, upstream, looking at the causes, which of course are often poverty, climate change, persecution. Look at the causes. I think we need to look at every aspect of illegal migration, upstream, looking at the causes, which of course are often poverty, climate change.
Okay, climate change. Holy smokes, I can't live where I am. Climate change is driving me out of sub-Saharan Africa. I got to get the hell out of Nigeria.
Yep. Oh, it's now that YouTube has freed us up to speak on this. This is insanity. This comes right down to, this is right at the same level as cattle farts. I mean, this is, Keir Starmer is having a farting day of the far left lunacy. But this is the scary stuff. This is how we're not like them. And let's look at it. This is a cult. A culture that has taken over government. He's just a government bureaucrat that got elected. He was handpicked. He's just the same part of your technocratic class who want absolute power. And this is what they sit around in their little meetings and chat about, of all the reasons how climate change, has caused mass migration into the West. So they're essentially saying it's the Western world's fault So thus you deserve to be invaded on mass scale and replaced because, Agenda 2030 said so. So we're just going to go with that climate policy so that we can drain the third world into the first world as an answer to climate change. So it's the climate's fault. I mean, this is how crazy these people are.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's absolutely, yeah, it's nuts. But it's just worth putting out there just to show how the mantra is repeated and how stupid it is.
Well, I do think the theory behind it is, I'll probably go with this, is that this is intentionally being done to destabilize the world. Getting back to the WF, you'll own nothing and be happy. We're going to go into an angrier world. They have to destabilize all the Western world, all the nationalism, so they can break it all up, destroy it from within, so that they can reform it under their new digital ID world government. That's what they want, because they got to come in as saviors, because they create the crisis and then they manage it. That's what they do. So understand, this is a worldwide phenomenon happening, run by these guys. And it is because essentially the world is broke. We've printed too much money, and that's where their power lies. So the whole immigration thing, so they'll blame climate so they can blame everybody to blame each other. Everybody turn their guns in on each other so that these guys can sit back and watch everybody destabilize and fall apart, and then they show up as heroes. And that's what they're going to do. And then the digital ID is going to save everybody. See, listen what he's blaming. He's saying we need digital ID to get rid of the immigrants, the illegal immigrants. Isn't that amazing?
This lady, this is the Raging Tomato. This is an incredible channel. Folks, if you're interested in the body politic, I love that. Raging Tomato, Sarah, not only is she, absolutely gorgeous, but she's smart. She's got a great channel. She features incredible guests, and she covers many topics, the kind of stuff that we do here on our, little program. Sarah's the real McCoy. I don't know what the hell she's doing for subs now, but she's breaking the stratosphere. People know Andrew Wilson. He's a frequent guest. 19,000 frickin' subscribers. She gets something like 500 people watching her live streams. I mean, this is top tier entertainment on YouTube. I can't recommend her enough. It is Sarah, the Raging Tomato. Sue, drop a link for the lovely lady. And while that's going on, I want to talk about some really great news that's coming out. Yeah, that's you. You're just a girl. You're just a girl. She is absolutely loved. She's a mom, single mom, hardworking mom. Anyway, I just love her, and I'm so happy for all the well-deserved success that she's got. So anyway, Blake, probably the best bit of news on the day is Wikipedia is about to get some serious competition.
Yeah.
So Sue's already dropped the link for Sarah, so this is great. Yeah, you are. You're winning souls, girl. You're winning souls. That's all good. But anyway, here's the real deal. Here's a link to Sarah's show. Please subscribe. Like she needs another subscriber. Go ahead, go watch her at the very least. Give her a watch, give her a review. Tell me what you think. Come on back and tell Blake and Ask. Give us your thoughts. I just think the world of her. Anyway, she's lovely. Okay. Holy smokes. Wikipedia. Here's my take on Wiki. It's great for if you want to find out who was in that film in 1931. Who was, Albert Schweitzer, and what was his big contribution to the world? All great on non-political stuff. As soon as you go into anything political, Wikipedia becomes tainted, loses all validity, all credibility, and it becomes yet another weapon or bullet, if you will, a figurative one, in the ideological gun of the left-wing variety. So Elon Musk with the announcement today, and we'll read it for you, kids. And now I'll turn it over to Blake. We are building Grokpedia. It'll be a massive improvement over Wikipedia. Frankly, it's a necessary step towards the XAI goal of understanding the universe. Oh, what a great goal. David Sachs writes, Wikipedia is hopelessly biased. An army of left-wing activists maintain the bios, and fight reasonable corrections, magnifying the problem. Wikipedia often appears first in Google search results, and now it's a trusted source for AI model training. This is a huge problem. So David Sachs with the comment, Grokpedia, Wikipedia is the disease. Grokpedia is the solution. I couldn't be more happy because I've recognized the weakness. And plus, when you're engaging in dialogue with your left-wing counterparts, they'll quote these kind of sources. And then what do? Well, Wikipedia says, blah, blah, blah. You're full of shit, Rachel and Blake. And so you go, yeah, man, but that's Wikipedia, So
Yeah.
it's all part of the fight for legitimation. We've talked about this before. The way they do with their Oscars and rewards and Emmys, like Stephen Colbert was given the Emmy Award for Best Talk Show. Why is that? Because his show is sick, sucks, can't get viewership, and is now canceled. It's a dead man float in the middle of the pool. It's done. You might want to, somewhat, judiciously refer to it as Wiki Weirdia. There's problems with it. Blake, take it away. Grokpedia as the rising contender.
Well, and I think, going along Elon's course right now, where he wanted all things AI to be open source, essentially. Nobody owns it. That was his involvement, why he had a big falling out with ChatGPT. So he's going down that same course because Wikipedia, I've had my own experience with it because quite some time ago, I gave up because it gave you the option. It was supposed to be open source in the sense that it was open to anybody to contribute to it, and it would kind of get voted up, right? That's kind of, you'd make an editorial change into some historical point. So it wasn't just political things, but it turns out history is political because I would try and correct things in some of the historical records of just basic history things that I was knowledgeable in. Oh, that's not correct. And so I would make a change, and then it would turn around and revert back to something was not true. And the point is that the history doesn't line up with the narrative that the Wikipedia people who run it want. And that's the problem. And I think this is where Elon has opened up, like, no, let's let the world of free knowledge and truth to come into a new version of what they were saying they were doing, which just became another tech company run by the elites that were trying to brainwash people into believing things that weren't true. And for example, they were calling people, you'll notice any political character on the right was called far right or extremist. Like, you'd be like, wait a minute, that guy's not an extremist. That guy's not that. And today, go try and look it up, read through it. You'll be like going, oh, let's talk about Ludwig von Mises. Okay, well, who was he? Well, he was a very famous economist from the 1930s and onwards who talked about liberalism, not talking about what you guys in the U.S. call as liberalism, which is socialism and to the left. Liberalism was a philosophy, a classical liberalism, which most of you are on the right today. You're classical liberal. You're not far left.
How dare you insult so much of our beautiful viewers?
Yeah, well, I've always said we should be making classical liberalism great again because we should take that name away from the left wingers because they're not even left wing. They're just Marxists and socialists. They're not liberals in the classical sense. Yeah. Most of us live under a classical liberal philosophy because that's what the U.S. Constitution is. It is a classical liberal view of the world. And we need to look at that. But look how they frame all these terms now on Wikipedia. It's good. It's finally, hopefully Elon can break some ground there on the Google search results and the search engines. But things are changing. People are not going to be using Google as much. Google is going to lose its search dominance. People are going to go to Grok. They're going to go to AI search. They're going to start to lose. That's why they're saying, well, we'll allow YouTube to talk about climate change and COVID-19 topics now because they were losing that battle. And they're going to face.
Yeah, I consciously made a choice to use Grok when I do my searches now. But listen, Blake, I mean, really good point on what you're saying there. Also, Sarah, Wikipedia, you should do this. Grokpedia versus Wikipedia. That would be a good topic for your people to take on. I think there's some fireworks in there. Left-right dichotomy, very interesting. It's a battle royal. But the comment was raised earlier. Somebody said, well, I hope they aren't going to ask. Yeah, it was Kimba. Hopefully, Grokpedia won't ask for donations. You get that, Wikipedia. Why do they ask for donations? Why are they so aggressive? Because it's another left-wing failing operation that requires propping up. Because there's no way it'll ever get a penny from me because I know what it is. I use it because it's still a great repository, but increasingly I'm going to Grok. But Grok is still problematic too. Grok is on the learning curve. It's getting better, but it's not always truthful. You have to work through a dialogue with Grok in controversial areas. It's pretty good with the straight and forward, but when it starts sampling leftist sources, then you've really got to weed through the bullshit and start dialoguing with the app, the AI, a little bit more in order to get truth. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the 110 mark. That's good enough for me. My stomach is telling me, got some food in you. Ladies and gentlemen, down to 223.0. That was today's marker on the scale. So, we're continuing to lose the weight because, you don't want to be a fatty. And another thing, Pete Hesketh was out there talking about the U.S. Army. He says there's no more, we're going to have physical conditioning requirements for the military. No more fat generals. We need everybody slim, trim. We're a fighting machine. And I could not agree more. If you're the Ministry of War, the Secretary of War with the Department of War, the War Department, then you want to be in shape. Because you can't go to war if you're fatty. I'm a little winded, Sarge. I don't think I'll make that extra 2 yards. I'm just done. Can we have a donut stop, please, Sarge? So that's all kind of what's happening. So there's good.
Yeah, I think they would have to call Pork Chop Hill would have a whole different meeting.
Pork chop, we're going to eat Pork Chop Hill. Ladies and gentlemen, thumbs up on the program. Subscribe if you're new around here. And thanks, as always, to my great partner, Blake. You do an incredible job and killer points today. And thank you. We appreciate Blake each and every day. We'll be back Friday for another show, folks. Thanks so much. Bye for now. Boof.